Son, you're one of the most promising candidates we've ever seen.
But why are you here?
Retreat! Rangers, lead the way!
The Ranger program is hell on earth, but what this group found in the jungle is not of this world. Alan Ritchson stars in War Machine, the new Netflix film where past trauma and an alien invasion collide in a desperate struggle for survival. Join Soldier 81 on the most real death march of his life. Are you ready for war? Let's begin. In Afghanistan, several military convoys move along the highway to help people who have become trapped. One of the soldiers gets out of the vehicle and protests angrily about the inconvenience, while another loses his cool and starts arguing with him until they end up fighting. However, they are actually brothers. After the moment of tension, they embrace, and the older brother takes charge of resolving the situation. During the conversation, the younger one mentions he received an assignment for the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, known as RASP, considered the most demanding post in the Army. The older brother shows no interest because he knows how hard it is and tells him to try it himself if he truly wants to. The younger brother becomes saddened, as they had always planned to apply together. Seeing him like this, the older brother finally agrees to go with him. Later, while they are returning, a missile hits one of the convoys. An attack begins immediately, and everything explodes around them. The soldier regains consciousness and discovers he is completely alone. Shortly after, he finds his brother, who is in agony and eventually dies slowly. Suddenly, he wakes up inside a bus. 2 years have passed since that incident. He takes out some antidepressants and swallows them. The buses are moving toward the Ranger Evaluation Center. Upon arrival, all soldiers are formed into ranks, given a number and assigned different tasks. Each row also receives a leader. When it is the protagonist's turn, they discover he has been rejected for medical reasons on 4 previous occasions. Even so, they give him number 81 and ask him to lead the group, but he declines the position. Later, everyone gathers to listen to Sergeant Torres, who explains how the process will work. For 8 weeks, they must undergo extremely hard training. If they make it to the end, they will have to complete a 24-hour simulated mission called the Death March, considered the most difficult military selection test in the world. If they pass that stage, they can become Rangers. Training begins, and everyone pushes themselves to the limit. At the end of the first phase, several participants are eliminated. The second round continues, and by its conclusion, more soldiers are out. The process keeps repeating, and number 81 demonstrates a performance far superior to the rest. One day during lunch, soldier number 7 notices that 81 always eats alone. More training follows, and at one point, they are all asked where they had been stationed before. When they hear 81's past, many look at him with surprise. In the dining hall, the others start talking about him, and number 44 tells his story. At the same time, the news announces that NASA has detected an asteroid that will pass near Earth. As the tests progress, more soldiers are discarded. During another meal, the group continues commenting on 81. It comes to light that he received a silver star. He was the sole survivor of an attack and carried his brother for 10 miles back to base. Number 15 asks him directly if that is true, but 7 interrupts him. 15 replies that he just wants to know if he is truly a hero. That night, 7 watches as 81 takes his antidepressants. The next day, he even exchanges a few words with him. The tests become increasingly demanding, and participants continue to be eliminated. 81 continues to suffer from nightmares related to the tragedy in Afghanistan. The final week arrives, and the task consists of walking underwater in a pool while carrying very heavy weights. One after another, everyone gives up, but 81 keeps going by imagining his brother. Even so, right at the end, he fails. They pull him out of the water and perform CPR. Luckily, he survives. A sergeant comments that the soldier is a burden to the group. Meanwhile, 81 sees on the news that the asteroids are not just one, but a group of several interstellar objects. He is then called before the sergeant. There, he is told he must leave the program immediately. He tries to protest, but they silence him. They explain that he is physically very strong, but his mental state is worrying. He doesn't sleep well, hardly speaks to others, and avoids taking on leadership. They tell him they could expel him, though they prefer he resign of his own free will. 81 stands up, politely declines the proposal, and leaves. The sergeants decide they will have to take measures. When the final round arrives, the soldiers who were not selected are left out, and number 81 is not among them. The others celebrate. For the final mission, Sergeant Torres shows them the terrain. The simulation involves rescuing a crashed pilot and bringing him back to base while facing various obstacles. This time, they name 81 the team leader. They board the helicopters, and the sergeant thinks that if he wants to be a ranger, he will have to prove he can lead others. The aircraft take off, cross a valley covered by thick jungle, and land at the starting point. The group gathers for a few minutes to prepare. They have 24 hours to complete the mission. 81 tries to give a motivational speech but fails to do so, and 7 steps in to encourage the group. They head toward the supposed crash site, crossing mountains and canyons, and when night falls, they still haven't found anything. While they rest, 7 tries to start a personal conversation with 81, but he refuses, making it clear he will only talk about the mission. Suddenly, something fast streaks across the sky. They believe it is part of the exercise planned by the instructors and continue moving. With the arrival of dawn, they finally find the crashed aircraft, though it looks too advanced to be part of the simulation. They decide to set explosives to open the fuselage and rescue the supposed hostage. One of the soldiers notices his compass isn't working, and 81 notices as well. Number 111 comments that communications have lost signal. The only thing heard is a strange howl. Still, they think it's all part of the test, and some go in to set the charges. Meanwhile, 81 sees something shiny in the distance and asks 44 to cover him while he investigates. The charges are already set when 81 reaches the spot and discovers a different wrecked plane, understanding that that is the real objective. When the explosives detonate, they expect to see the craft destroyed, but to their surprise, it remains intact, without any damage. Then, it begins to transform. Slowly, it lights up and starts to rise. It turns out to be a massive robot-shaped machine that deploys a blue laser to scan them. The color changes to red and points at one of the soldiers. A weapon emerges from its interior and fires. The soldier is instantly destroyed, and others also die while trying to escape. 7 manages to hide for a moment and then runs. The machine aims at 44, but 81 arrives in time to save him. Both flee through the jungle while the machine continues firing. They reach a large pit and stop, but the robot throws a bomb that explodes and makes them fall among wood and rocks. One of the men is impaled by a stake, and 7 suffers a terrible leg wound. 81 stands up, and seeing the scene, he remembers his past in Afghanistan. He has several broken fingers, but manages to reset them. He approaches a screaming soldier and calms him. Together, several of them help the impaled man get out of there. Then they settle 7 in a corner. No one understands what that creature is. They realize they need the radio that 111 was carrying. 81 runs to recover it. He reaches 111's body, but the communication equipment is destroyed. Nearby, he sees a soldier crawling, still alive. He also watches as the machine approaches, points the laser at him, and eliminates him in seconds. The wounded soldier who remained with the group is in critical condition, and although they try to help him, he ends up dying. 81 runs back and tells them they must move now because the machine is hunting them. 15 asks what that thing is. 81 admits he doesn't know, but he's certain it's following them. He throws a rope into the pit and everyone prepares theirs. They descend one by one. 96 and 81 try to help 7, but 96 asks 81 to move ahead while he lowers him slowly. Meanwhile, 81 looks at his compass and understands the machine is close. Suddenly, it appears behind 96 and blows him up. 7 falls hard and 81 covers his mouth so he won't scream. 96's body falls in front of them. The machine approaches the edge of the precipice and scans the area. Everyone presses against the wall, trying not to be seen. Slowly, it passes by them, but 15's trembling leg gets caught. They immediately run as the machine fires. They cross the jungle and the robot changes weapons, launching numerous explosives. They try to dodge them as best they can while the detonations shake the ground. As they move away, the machine stops firing. The group reaches an open meadow and sits down to catch their breath. 81 begins to set 7's leg. He suffers another panic attack due to the trauma, but 7 takes his hand and calms him. He asks for morphine, but they discover it broke during the fall. 7 asks him to do it anyway. 81 resets the bone and applies a bandage, though 7 ends up fainting. They place him on an improvised stretcher. 15 is frustrated because they can't communicate with the base either. The situation is spiraling out of control, and this is only the beginning. If you're enjoying this story of survival, give the video a big like and subscribe right now so you don't miss the conclusion of this and many other incredible movies. Your support helps us keep bringing you the best content. Now, let's get back to the battle. Then 81 explains that that place was not their real objective. What he saw was simply an old fighter jet. Now all that's left is to cross the terrain to the finish line where the rest of the team should be. 15 thinks that maybe that finish line no longer exists, but 81 insists it's the only option. They leave unnecessary equipment behind and continue. Crossing the jungle, they find a river with a very strong current. 81 asks for the ropes and says he will cross first to secure an anchor. He dives into the water and swims with difficulty while the current tries to drag him away. 44 keeps the rope steady. For a moment, they think 81 has disappeared, but he finally emerges on the other side. He ties the rope to a log. 15 begins to cross with 7 behind him. The stretcher gets stuck among branches. 15 tries to fix it, but one of the knots comes loose, and 7 is left hanging. 81 takes charge, moving along the rope while 44 balances from the other side. The others maintain the tension. When they are in the middle, the compass fails again. The machine has arrived. It points at the soldiers holding the rope and makes them explode. Everyone falls into the river. The current drags them toward a waterfall, while 81's leg gets caught in the rope. The robot enters the river and fires. It is about to step on him, but 81 cuts the rope with his knife and dives. He sees 7 floating and swims until he reaches him. Both fall down the waterfall. 81 manages to cling to some debris, and later, other soldiers rescue them. 7 is still alive. One of the men waiting at the finish line helps them and points the way. As 81 prepares to follow, they see the head of a dead comrade floating past. Even so, they continue. Finally, they reach another meadow and find a trap the sergeants had prepared for the exercise, a tripwire connected to a flare. 81 understands that the base is near. They keep walking until they arrive, but they discover everything is destroyed. They believe the machine was responsible. 15 doesn't understand how it could have happened if it was always chasing them. They see that the communications tower fell and understand why they had no signal. 81 examines the site and deduces that the machine arrived by crossing the mountain. It is probably related to the asteroids mentioned in the news and is clearly not from this planet. Suddenly, they hear someone. It is the sergeant, severely burned, who dies shortly after. However, 81 sees a nearby tank and decides to repair it. 15 explodes with rage, reproaching him for appearing to have no emotions, saying that maybe he doesn't get teared because he is a hero, while the others are normal people. This provokes a reaction from 81, who confronts him, saying he is no hero. He explains that he never managed to get back to the base with his brother. He woke up in a hospital, and his brother was already dead. They told him he died only 100 yards from the base because he fainted before arriving. Now, he says it's not about them, but about warning the world. They must start that tank and return to the starting point to report the danger. The engine won't start, but 15 manages to fix it because he has experience. The tank finally starts up. They tie it with ropes and pull until it is freed from where it was stuck. 44 finds some food inside and shares it. They load 7, but at that moment, a flare rises behind them. The machine is close. They hurry inside. The compass spins non-stop. Another flare lights up the sky. They discover the tank has no ammunition while 15 runs to find some. He finds some just as the ground begins to shake. He runs back as the machine approaches, but before it can reach them, they are fired upon. He manages to throw the ammo inside, although he is mortally wounded. 44 accelerates and the tank moves forward amidst explosions. They start firing, but the shells bounce off the machine. 44 turns the tank sharply and everyone crashes inside. The machine responds with more shots and a fire starts inside that they manage to extinguish. The armor has suffered a lot of damage. Even so, they move fast, though 81 notices the machine only stopped to launch more explosives. They fall one after another in front of the tank as 44 drives through them with difficulty. They manage to get through, but the robot launches nearly 100 more. The vehicle ends up flipping and falls down a cliff. 44 struggles to maintain control while the others hold on. Little by little, they manage to stabilize and lose sight of the machine. 81 believes they lost it, but suddenly it appears on top of them. It lands in front of the tank and opens its structure, showing a powerful blue beam that fires a devastating laser. The tank swerves, trying to escape. The soldiers fire their weapons while one gets his hand torn off. 81 throws grenades that cause fire, though they barely affect it. The tank is nearly destroyed, and the shots are no longer accurate. Then, 81 fires a grenade against the rocks of the side mountain. These collapse onto the machine. He asks 44 to turn the tank, but discovers the driver has died. The vehicle explodes. 81 regains consciousness, badly injured. He stands up and sees that all his companions have died. He approaches the rocks to check the state of the machine. He only finds one of its hands. Looking back, he sees the robot is still standing, projecting a beam toward the sky. He hides behind a rock and understands it is trying to communicate with someone. Then he finds Seven still alive and runs toward him to wake him up. The machine finishes its transmission and destroys the fallen tank after scanning it. Then it descends slowly. 81 flees, dragging Seven. It starts to rain, and in the mud-filled jungle, Seven slips while 81 tries to keep moving forward. Exhausted, 81 collapses, thinking he has failed again. Seven wakes up and confesses he always knew who he was. He had been a friend of his brother, and his brother always talked about becoming a ranger alongside his big brother. He tried to tell him before, but 81 never wanted to talk. 81 replies that he thought if he reached the goal, he could sleep peacefully. He believes he let everyone down, especially his brother. Seven tells him he didn't give up, and that doesn't mean failure. Shortly after, they see the machine scanning nearby. 81 watches closely and notices that smoke always comes out of the top of its head. He realizes it must be a ventilation system. He also sees a nearby construction plant and decides to use it to try to destroy it. He leaves Seven leaning against a tree and asks him to wait. 81 enters the factory, reaches the engine room, and turns on the lights. He finds dynamite and a flare gun. He activates the main system and the site's floodlights. Then he discovers a panel that controls the movement of large rocks. Meanwhile, Seven hears the machine approaching. Just when he fears it will find him, 81 fires the flare to get its attention. The robot heads toward the factory. Without knowing it, it scans the floor where 81 left explosives. The detonation knocks it down. At that moment, 81 appears driving an excavator. The vehicle blocks the shots while pushing the machine against a wall. Then he activates the mechanism and the rocks begin to fall on its head. The machine responds by launching fire, and the excavator begins to move back. When it has space, the robot opens its structure to fire the blue laser, but 81 accelerates and rams it against the wall again. The rocks keep falling until they gradually crush the ventilation. The excavator begins to fail, but the vent is blocked, and the machine starts to overheat. In its last attempt, it fires at a tower that falls onto the excavator, though 81 jumps just in time. The machine overheats completely and finally explodes. However, as it falls, it causes other explosives to detonate. 81 runs, climbs over the rocks, and jumps as the whole place blows up. The next morning, 81 carries Seven and manages to reach the base. Medics take the wounded man. The place is full of chaos. There he meets Sergeant Sheridan, who explains that these machines have appeared in many places. They have managed to stop the first wave, but a global invasion is being prepared. The news reports that the machines are spreading across the planet and more are on the way. No one knows what they want or where they come from. The whole world is preparing for war. Sheridan approaches and tells him those machines are very hard to destroy, so he wants to know how he managed to finish one off alone. 81 explains that you have to block the vent so it overheats. The sergeant states that this information will save many lives. 81 admits he was right when he said he wasn't ready. Then the sergeant hands him the Ranger tab and tells him that now he is. They gather the soldiers and 81 gives a speech telling how he defeated the machine to motivate them. Finally, everyone boards the helicopters, ready to fight in the war that has just begun.